On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Chintan Shah. He is the VP of Engineering at Collective. We're going to be talking about the application of AI, really centered around partly the product that Chintan's working on. And we're going to be talking about business outcomes. Really, how does this benefit the consumer experience? Chintan's got a great background. Thanks for being on the show to talk to us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Amir. Good morning. And to all the viewers as well. I'm really excited. I think it's an interesting landscape that we're in. I would love to talk about how Collective is benefiting its consumers using generative AI.
Absolutely. Tell everyone, since we're going to be talking about business outcomes and we're using Collective as the use case, it'd be great for everyone to know what the product actually does before we dive in.
Yeah, so I think it's a pretty interesting service that we provide, which is for people who are working as consultants or contractors and make a living out of that. People we normally refer to as folks working off of 1099 here in the US are primarily our customers. And we're talking about skilled professions here, like marketing consultants, software consultants, health coaches, life coaches, etc., who are earning a living, working with their clients, working through different projects with their clients, and in a sense, having to run their own business. So this is a small business at, I think its smallest end. We call it business of one. And there are a lot of benefits in the US tax laws if you represent the work that you are doing as a business as opposed to as an individual in terms of tax laws, but also in terms of liability. So fundamentally, we are providing that service to our customers, and we are taking away all the time that they have to spend to manage the burden of maintaining this business, right? You have to do bookkeeping, accounting, payroll, quarterly taxes, and so forth. This is all offered as a bundled service, including formation of LLCs and registering yourself as an S Corp. So this is kind of the primary package that we deliver. Obviously, as a tech company, we do this entire thing as a technology package.
Interesting. I mean, obviously, some of the key things I heard there was trying to help people save time, become more efficient. Obviously, you mentioned business of one, which means not only do these people, these companies of one have to actually go find work, they actually have to do the work, they have to manage their own books. I mean, there's a lot in there, right? The marketing side, they've got to do a lot. So obviously, the more time they save, the more potential money they can make. So I think that's really an interesting angle. And we're talking about business outcomes, and we're looking at GenAI, right? Obviously, from a consumer perspective, everyone is seeing a lot of the discussion around ChatGPT and similar products. I guess when we're looking at it from the standpoint of a product like yours, right, where we're moving away from, hey, it's not a prompt where you think AI sits and you have to help people understand that there is AI that helps you. Is there a little shift that you have to kind of reframe the benefits of AI built into a product like Collective for the end user?
Yeah, it's surprisingly not the case. For us, it was a very natural fit. I think just in terms of time savings, to set the premise, the customers who come to us primarily either were trying to do this thing on their own by using QuickBooks or any of these online payroll providers. And often I think it's that peace of mind as well, that Collective has got their back in terms of taking not only the work off of their plate, but giving them an opportunity to, not worry about, am I going to get in trouble with IRS, or am I doing something incorrectly that is not really intended. So I think there is a safety of mind that we do as well in terms of like the white glove service that we provide. I think the reason why I mentioned that it's seemingly a very natural fit is that we have been trying to use all of the information that we have. We have got accounting experts, we have got tax experts, payroll experts, and so forth in the company. And they've been using tools for a while. These folks have years and years of experience. As we were building the business around providing this service, we end up having a ton of information about how to interpret the business. What is funny is that there is a legal way to say what is the right way to do accounting. There are sort of gap laws or whatever that is available. But accounting, taxes, and even payroll is very, very subjective interpretation. For example, government provides you information about you have to reasonably pay yourself when you own your own company. But there isn't actually a table to say that if you are a software consultant, that means your range should be this, right? So I think for us, having that data, which is available across many different customers, across many different geographies, gives us that natural way into using that data for the AI things. I think what changed really in sort of January, February, or March time more so than anything is the more popular application of GPT as an AI tool. We had formerly tried using AI for some of the work, and I'll talk to you about some of these use cases, but it was very intensive in terms of having a machine learning infrastructure set up that required to do that, a whole team to manage and maintain that. And as a company that was still kind of trying to find its ground, it was going to be kind of unaffordable for us. So I think the basic thing was the use case was always there. We have got a ton of what you call label data in the world of machine learning that is really helpful to train your AI models. I think what we got with the popular the way GPT was released after, I would say, GPT-3 primarily, was that now we had a pre-trained model. So the model itself is commoditized. I worked at other companies in the past where coming up with the model, tuning it for the right application, and then using it on a day-to-day basis requires a significant amount of investment. And that investment kind of got commoditized for us.
You mentioned, obviously you have data. And I think when we're talking about, customer experience, you mentioned obviously providing that guidance. You use the reasonable salary example. You guys are providing guidance. Obviously, you're seeing a lot of the data. You need the end user to trust it. When it comes to that data and kind of managing the data to make sure that you can verify the output, make sure that the data that the AI is providing is correct. I guess maybe talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so give you this one example. Another example is in the world of accounting. When you are managing your books, you tend to close your book at a certain time period. Let's say on a monthly basis, you are sort of, closing your books. That means you're going to generate a balance sheet. You're going to do all of the credit and debit accounting for that time period. In that case, one of the primary things that is very hard for people who don't have the accounting knowledge is to categorize which expenses are business exempt, up to what percent can they take the exemption, how do they classify some of these things. So there's this system of code of accounts that you have to establish for your business first, and then based on the code of accounts, you have to do the classification and the categorization of these expenses. In our case, for example, we have about more than a few million records of what our accountants have done on behalf of our customers. And when we have cohorts of customers like software consultants in California, or web designers in Texas, or realtors in Florida, and so forth, we also get a good cluster of data. So it's not just, one person, but there are certain geographically relevant information. There is other kind of similarities that we can also use to our benefit. In the case of reasonable compensation and this, the huge benefit that we have is that GPT does not give you the process of verification, right? I'm sure you and your users have heard a lot about the hallucination problem of this generative AI. And I think, given the fact that we are trying to make sure legally we are doing the right thing on behalf of our customers, it is extremely important to us in the fintech world that we apply it very prudently. So I think in our case, these examples that I gave you are sort of what has become a really good way for us to verify what is being produced by the generative AI. And do we surface that to the customer, or do we make that change ourselves first? And then I think the mode of application of generative AI predominantly, if you look at the trends today, is very co-pilot kind of a model. I think it is very interesting for us because what happens is here, we're not replacing the accountants that we have or the experts that we have in these areas. More so, we supplement or augment them to say, okay, here's the output, verify it, yes or no, and it goes back into the system also. So we kind of use generative AI that out of the box does not give you a precision recall and a feedback loop. But by having our own process around it, we're able to actually build it and provide it with much more, compliance to the regulatory parts of our business, essentially.
You mentioned the Copilot component. I think it's really interesting because, obviously, within software development, that's becoming. We're seeing that application, right? And as a software engineer, I'll let you speak to it. You'll see the Copilot helping you. It's assisting you. In the case of when you're looking at a product like Collective, where I might know nothing. Actually, that's not true. I know nothing very much about bookkeeping. I have a bookkeeper. I can't do it myself, no matter how hard I try. It's just I just don't get my head around it. I probably need that assistance, right? That Copilot assistance, but I might not actually have the strongest understanding of what I'm actually seeing at the time. So I'm really looking at that, what we consider the mundane, and you're providing that added value on top. And as you're seeing the users kind of adopt and have that Copilot type experience, and you're seeing the users, and you're getting more insights in terms of how it's benefiting them. How's that going back into the product, that feedback loop back into making sure the product keeps evolving and keep improving?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So we don't expose GPT or any Copilots directly to our customers. Our customers pay us to do their books. So for all intents and purposes, we are their bookkeepers, right? Very similar to you have a person who's doing that. What we do is we try to use the feedback loop. We try to use the signals. So I'll walk you through the process of Bookkeeper, and I think that might be easier to answer your question. So we get the bank statements on a monthly basis, which is done via feed that is integrated with your business bank account, or as a customer, your business bank account to Collective. Collective takes that information and starts sort of looking at other information like your payroll, your invoices, and other bits that are related to try to have a comprehensive view of your books for that month or for that 30-day period. What we do at this point is we expose this information via prompts to the GPT model, and we ask it to categorize it. Now, there are multiple steps involved in this. What we also do is at the end of the output being created, we use a traditional ML model to boost the confidence of this. That traditional ML model is trained using our own data. So the best way to talk about this is we're sort of doing a multiple step exposure of applying AI. We're not taking just what GPT is giving and exposing it to our accountants who are responsible for your books, but we actually augment it with their past information. And this is sort of like where I feel there's a little bit of traditional ML application, but this is where our ability to understand recall, precision, and feedback becomes very helpful. What we are able to see also is that the internal accounting application that we use on behalf of our customers. And when we are going through that, we expose and understand that if the AI has said this, sort of line item needs to be categorized as such and such business expense, we look at whether the accountant accepted that, rejected that, or changed it to something else as an option. And that becomes sort of the feedback loop. So we don't ask them explicitly to say, do you accept or reject? But any change that they make is what is captured and then processed in the system as accepted, rejected, or changed something. This is where the feedback loop then becomes really important, because now we can use the traditional ML model that we have got to loop that into the model, keep it retraining, and continue to sort of filter or provide that additional service on top of what GPT produces for us.
I guess as you're seeing, it's interesting, I guess, the application, thank you for walking us through it. As you're seeing the consumer experience, are you getting direct feedback from them in terms of, is there a direct way of measuring that in terms of how they view the benefits of the underlying systems?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example where we do see the direct benefits. And this is a very different application. We've not talked about this yet, but it's the advanced taxes that as a business you have to pay on a quarterly basis to your state and federal government. Quarterly taxes are a pretty tricky situation, because as a business of one, you do have to think about managing your cash flow because you are, expending some expenses while your projects are getting paid at whatever frequency they are getting paid at. So if you pay too much in the quarterly taxes up in advance, right, and you get a whole lot of return back, then your cash flow you may have a problem in your cash flow. You will have less cash to just run your business. On the other hand, if you pay too little, then you will get penalized. There will be penalties issued by the state and the IRS on how little you paid. So there's a balancing act. Now, what we do is we provide a breakdown to the customer saying how we calculate their quarterly tax estimates. And because these are at the end of the day estimates, they will still not close their year and they're paying advanced taxes. We have got very positive feedback from the customer about now being able to digest why we are recommending a certain amount to be paid as a tax in advance, and how will that impact their overall cash flow. This was a product that we released just a couple of months back. We have been doing quarterly taxes, obviously, for the entire time that we have been in business for our customers. But the breakdown, the explanation, all of that is now visible to you as a member of the collective subscription. And that has become significantly helpful. The other way we are seeing the feedback is literally in terms of customer satisfaction scores, which we do as well as we release these products. So the impact is pretty significantly visible now. On the operations side, we found out that the number of questions that we get asked by the customers about their quarterly taxes has reduced significantly because of this. So I think this is a good example of where we're certainly seeing the customer impact, also seeing an impact on the business, and it seems like a win-win.
And I guess, in this, as you're kind of dealing with tax laws and you're dealing with changes, it's seemingly yearly, event where some kind of tax law or some nuance gets changed. How do you guys deal with those, tax law changes, updates, modifications, so that the system, stays accurate?
That's a great question. I think at the end of the day, the tax calculations on the tax returns that are being done are done by official tax software. That's not where we are using AI. In the commercial world, there are softwares that are like UltraTax or whatnot that, your CPA would be using. They probably won't be using TurboTax for Business, right? So I think we end up using the same thing at the end of the day. And that's where we're not applying AI, because you are absolutely right. It is such a nuanced field. And there's also a lot of interpretation. For example, last year, there were some new tax laws introduced. Every year, tax laws get introduced. But a lot of times, even your CPAs don't know how to apply them. So some CPAs will end up making a policy of like not applying it this year and just seeing what the outcome is from their colleagues and the pool of information about the IRS, and then end up auditing those, or how did they react to the usage of those tax laws, while there are other CPAs who will be probably more aggressive in trying this out. We use a similar methodology. We form a policy every year in terms of how we are going to interpret and apply those taxes on behalf of our customers.
Interesting. I guess, yeah, that's, when you're looking at the bookkeeping side of the house and trying to manage, just the baseline for a user, obviously, as you mentioned, somebody who doesn't have the time, doesn't have the knowledge, we're not all, taught in school or at any point in our lives how to actually deal with some of this stuff. So there are nuances, and that trust side seems really important, because obviously it could impact, their income levels, the net income, how much taxation on top. I guess as you kind of start thinking about the the roadmap of where the product could go, and potentially, helping customers, obviously with the defined focus of this group, like where could the product grow just from helping drive better outcomes for the end user?
Yeah, I think where we are in the trajectory of the company right now, I feel like we're getting to a point where we are able to support a large contingent of customers, and we've got over 3,000 paying customers now, in terms of their monthly books, in terms of their quarterly estimates, and in terms of their yearly taxes. Our capacity, as it continues to grow, and we are a growing business, we're still able to serve all customers with the same sort of timeline. So I'll talk a little bit about that and unpack it. For example, your monthly bookkeeping, if that happens, you usually do it for the prior month. So we're at the end of September in 2023. So the monthly bookkeeping for September will happen in the first 2 weeks of October. We'll close those books. As our customers grew, what we found out was that operational part was difficult to scale, so that every customer gets their book done within the first 15 days of the next month. Similarly, for quarterly tax estimates, you want to get their tax estimates done. We're trying to be a technology company that scales horizontally. So I think that's the biggest benefit we are getting right now, is that we're able to horizontally scale. You add another, you double the size of number of customers that we can support. We'll still continue to close everybody's book within the first 15 days of the month. I think for a customer, this gives a lot of benefit, which is, hey, I know for sure that Collective is going to do my books by the first 15 days. I have got a good expectation set up. We've got the product in the dashboard where we communicate the dates by which we'll be ready for them, what kind of questions we might have to clarify, and so forth. So I think it becomes a really efficient machine. And that's sort of what we are doing. I would say that we achieve that by end of this year, what we call as the phase one of the product. I think where we go from here is pretty interesting. Our goal is ultimately, and what you originally talked about, is to give time back to these people to grow their business, right? This is core of the service that we are providing. But now you layer in things like, oh, we can take care of the 401k for you. We can take care of your business insurance for you, or we can provide you with options which are more valuable as recommendations for you as a business. I think we start sort of creating this security net that usually you get when you are hired by a large corporation, right? When you go and start your regular job, in the first week, you fill out some of these forms and things kind of become autopilot for you from that point onwards. As an individual business, there's a lot that you have to do research yourself, ask around in these kind of things. I think our biggest benefit that will grow out of getting more efficiencies in the current process is that we understand the customer and their business a lot more. So from a perspective of, very simplified way of how I see this is that today, let's say we are doing very efficiently CPA as a service, right? The bookkeeping, the payroll, the tax part, we're doing it that efficiently. We're CPA as a service, essentially. Where we can go is we can become CFO as a service. So we can say, hey, these are the insights. Here's how you should think about reading your balance sheet or your cash flow statements. And here are the opportunities for you to grow your business while there is all of this safety net that we can provide in terms of what we talked about prior, some examples. We feel like that is the right way to think about these customers and to provide them with even more time back and more things that are on autopilot for them. So we are definitely heading that direction.
Awesome. Seems like super exciting. I mean, obviously taking something that isn't glamorous and applying some levels of assistance to the end user to optimally make decisions, help them, get their books done faster. I think it's really interesting because it takes time, and time is valuable when you're a company of one. So I think it's a fantastic product. If somebody wants to reach out to you, Chintan, to talk about the technology and kind of like how you see the growth of what's going on, is there a good way of contacting you?
LinkedIn is the best way. You can always contact me directly. I'm Chintan at collective.com. We have a really good, easy domain to remember. So just use my first name. We're actually hiring and we're growing in the engineering team. So if there are folks who are interested in our mission, would love to hear from your viewers or your listeners. Anyways, yeah.
Awesome. Again, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Amir. This is great talking to you about our application of GPT.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. We'll post your LinkedIn in the show notes so everyone can reach out to Chintan if they want to follow up on anything he's mentioned. And if you did like the podcast, if you did find it interesting, share it with somebody else out there who might do the same. I think that's how we've been growing. And I appreciate everyone who does share the episode with a colleague. If you do want me to talk about a specific topic, let me know. Contact me. Let me know what you want me to find a guest to talk about. I'll do my best. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a review. The drill. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.